Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today I'm here with Scott Lyman.
I got started in high school with my friend, my best friend Joe. We both really like movies, so we figured, why not try making our own? I don't think politics has a place in movies because for me, the idea of movie, when it first got popular in the Great Depression, people went to the movies for a kind of escapism, They don't want to think about, upsetting stuff. They just want to have a good time,
Yep.
live in the story and that kind of stuff. It's not just about China and Taiwan. I mean, for China, maybe Russia will get involved, North Korea, I don't know. But, on Taiwan's side, maybe Japan's going to get involved, South Korea, and of course the U.S. I don't know if they'll actually get involved, but they definitely have an interest in the area. But I feel like, in general, if you just be a nice guy and don't be a bad guy, you'll be okay. If people want to follow gender roles, go ahead, and I think it's great.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the VoV podcast, Voices of Vic. Today I'm here with Scott Lyman. Is that it? Lyman?
That's me, yeah.
There you go. Welcome to the podcast. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So, third-year political science and history major.
Yeah, that's right.
There you go. Why the double major? I'm doing double minors.
Right.
Double major sounds like a harder path.
Well, yeah, but I feel like if you got two things that you're equally interested in, I think that double major is a good idea. I like history, and poli-sci and history kind of goes, hand in hand.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. History is really important to learn. I've been trying to talk to guests more about the importance of history, how history doesn't necessarily repeat, but it rhymes. But we'll get into it.
I see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting thing. You're not taking cinema studies, but you're big into movies. Not necessarily I'm not saying you're a huge movie fan. I bet you are. But you're also a filmmaker yourself. Short films.
Yeah, short films. Well, I actually took a first-year cinema studies course when I was in my first year, but I didn't really like it. I thought people were kind of overanalyzing everything, and for me, a good movie is a good movie. If you like it, you like it. I don't think there's need to overanalyze everything.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's really for me, but I still enjoy making movies, and it's one of my greatest passions.
There you go.
Yeah.
What got you into that? Walk me through kind of the progression, because you've come up with some huge accomplishments in the movie space. Screening at Hart House, screening at there's a few other places. I didn't memorize all of them, but how'd you get started into it?
I got started in high school with my friend, my best friend Joe. We both really like movies, so we figured, why not try making our own? And first we started doing it with our phones. And, that went okay, not great. But then we tried it again, and it worked a little better. And then we got a camera, and then we got a microphone. And we just kept doing it. We just loved doing it. And, it's a special thing getting all these people together. And a lot of times the people we get together, they didn't know each other at the beginning. And by the end, everybody would be, great friends. And, it's a very special thing to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have any role models in the space where it's this guy kind of inspired me to get started into this, or is it YouTubers maybe that you watched growing up?
Yeah. I would say there's this French director, and his last name's Truffaut.
Okay.
I can never pronounce his first name,
Yeah.
but it's like Francois,
Something French.
Something French, yeah. But he made this movie called The 400 Blows, which sounds kind of like a weird name, but it makes sense in French.
Yeah.
But it's about this little kid and growing up, and it's a coming of age movie. And it's made really kind of bare bones and just one camera and follows him around sometimes. And we figured with such, an approachable method of filmmaking, and he still makes such a great film, it really made me think that maybe I can do something like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So yeah, no, I obviously wasn't doing short film stuff, but when I was a kid, everyone wanted to be a YouTuber. So I would do these little skit videos on YouTube. Same thing with the phone, iMovie, mobile.
Yeah.
It was fun stuff, but no, it definitely hasn't gotten to where you got yours. What has been the progression? This might be a boring part for the audience. I'm not trying to start the podcast off in a boring way. I'm just super interested in the technical aspect of it. How has your equipment evolved since it just started out from that thing in your pocket to now?
Yeah.
I'm sure you got bigger and better stuff.
So like I said before, the phone and sound was also recorded on the phone. Then, of course, we got a DSLR camera,
Yeah.
like a digital one, and we got a little tripod. We propped it on there. And
Yeah.
for the sound, we got this like handheld audio recorder, like this Zoom thingy.
Yeah.
And, when we film, we kind of just have the camera, doing its thing, and we'll have a guy holding the microphone and just hide, somewhere out of frame to try to get the best sound quality possible. And that's still how I do it today. It's kind of primitive, but
That's awesome. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
Why didn't you take cinema studies? Like, if this is like such a huge interest.
Well, because I took my first and only cinema studies course in my first year, and I realized it wasn't what I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be how to set up your camera, how to do this shot, how to make movies,
Yeah.
But it was really more about movie analysis, which I was less interested in.
Got it.
Yeah.
I had no, that's a good point. I didn't think that would have, I mean, if it's U of T, right?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's like the big movie schools in Canada? Are there any?
The big movies, I feel like there's a big one here in Toronto, the Toronto Film School or something like that. I know the film school at Sheridan's pretty big.
Yeah.
There's also one at UBC, I think, that's also popular. I would say, the big cities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Something I've been kind of interested in, and it's cool because you have the mix of, movies you're interested in filmmaking and then also political science.
Yeah.
How nowadays I feel like with Hollywood, there's been a lot of like tension in terms of it's become very politicized.
Right.
Like we see the stuff that's going on with Disney. Disney movies have been kind of like tanking in the past few years.
Yeah.
Because of different things related to politics. So what do you think about that?
About politics and film?
Yeah.
Well, for me personally, I try to avoid it as much as possible. I don't think politics has a place in movies, because for me, the idea of movie, when it first got popular in the Great Depression, people went to the movies for a kind of escapism. They don't want to think about, I don't know, upsetting stuff. They just want to have a good time, live in the story and that kind of stuff. So I think it's a very bad idea to put politics in movies, because, well, first you divide the audience, and all of a sudden you got half of your audience gone, and also the people that go to watch it, they might not agree with you, and you're kind of missing the point, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
there's different like skill sets that come with filmmaking. Like when I was, once again, I'm not trying to offend you when I compare your movies to my YouTube videos when I was a kid, but when I was younger, like there's different things you need to do. Obviously, when you look at the ending credits of any movie, there's like hundreds and hundreds of roles for people.
Yeah.
Obviously, as a short filmmaker, you can't really afford to hire all these people. You got to do a lot of it yourself.
Yeah.
So, like, do you act in your own movies? Are you the guy filming? Are you directing? Are you writing? Like, what is your main skill sets when you're trying to get this stuff?
When I first got started with my friend in high school, I was the one writing, I was the one directing. I acted too, and with the cinematography stuff, I kind of just told the guy to shoot it like this, and he'll do that. But now with my most recent short film, I stopped acting. I handed the acting shtick to my friend Jonah Weinberg, who's a pretty big voice actor. He's in like Dino Ranch and stuff. He's good, and so nowadays I write the script and I film and I direct. Is kind of what I do now.
Yeah. And so like, what pushed you into that sense? Is that what you like doing? Is that what you're better at doing? Like, do you have a passion for being on screen, but you're just like, I just can't do what this guy can do? Why do you choose to go behind the scenes?
Well, at first I wanted to do kind of the Woody Allen thing, which is you write, you direct, and you act, you do everything. Yeah. But then I realized I can't really do that. I'm kind of stretching myself too thin. And I'm really better at directing than acting, I think. So I figured it would be better if I just focus on writing and directing, and that other people do the work. And I'm pretty happy with that.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. If you had to showcase for VoV podcasts, Scott Lyman's movie trophy case of like your top achievements as a filmmaker.
My top achievement.
What are your things that you're like most proud of? Like when you think back, or maybe even future goals that are coming up for you?
When I think back, the first biggest milestone would definitely be actually putting a film together. Yeah. Because a lot of times you go out and you say you have these big ideas, I'm going to make the best movie ever. And then you don't even get a final product.
It's easier said than done. Yeah.
It's easier said than done. So I was very proud of myself when I, really pushed myself to put the first film together. And I would say the next milestone would be figuring out, the submitting to film festivals and all that. Because I think for independent filmmakers, it's definitely a very nerve-wracking process, because you're not just making these films for yourself anymore. You're putting it out there, and people are going to judge you. People are going to think, maybe they're not so good. So it's a big step, and I'm proud of myself for doing that. And I think I'm also proud of myself for trying new things every time. I try to change up the genre, change up the dialogue, or that kind of stuff. I always want to challenge myself. I don't want to make the same kind of movie every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what is, like, because I've never seen it. I told you I was listening to your country music before this,
Yeah.
which is cool. I couldn't find the short films. Where do you, like, put this stuff? Is it like a YouTube thing? Do you just...
Yeah, the short films are all on a YouTube channel.
Okay.
But the latest one, I haven't put it on there yet, because I submitted it to a film festival, and they don't want it out there before they make their decision.
Okay. So where
Yeah.
can people find these movies if they want to go watch some of your
If
stuff?
they want to go watch it, well, you can find it on YouTube at Scott the Filmmaker. That's the channel name.
Awesome.
But don't have any kind of high expectations.
No, that's good, man. That's good. If it's anything like your music, it'll be good. What do you call it? Is that an EP you made?
That's an EP. Anything under 7 songs would be an EP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't know that. What like was music after filmmaking? Why'd you go and make an EP here? You're like, I just got to do everything creative here.
When I was a kid, the first interest that came to me was music, other than filmmaking. But for a while, I tried making music, and I figured, I'm not really good. Let me try making movies first, and then I did that, and I would say that worked out pretty well for me so far. And then I figured, let me give music another try, and I got back into it with my friends, and it's been going pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the future, what's like the bigger picture? Is it, political science? You're trying to go into work in that field, maybe work for the government? Are you trying to go make movies? Are you trying to keep writing songs? Like, where do you see your path heading down these, like, 3 kind of pretty different lanes?
Yeah, I feel like what I would like to do is find a stable job with, I don't know, law or government, that kind of stuff. But I would really like to pursue film and music on the side. And I think deep down, I know that's what I really want to do. But, reality is you got to find a stable job first to, support yourself and all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. Something I think about a lot is that, like, the entertainment industry is kind of, like, booming even more than it was before. I heard someone, once again, I think it was on Joe Rogan, talk about how his theory or his expectation for the future is that once AI comes in and automates all, like, the big jobs that, like, kind of coordinate survival, then humans, what we're going to spend our time doing is just trying to entertain each other.
Yeah.
So whether it's acting or music or YouTube, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
It's like that is kind of the fate of human civilization, which when I heard it, I was like, okay, interesting. But when you see, like, the huge successes and the waves of people that are now, like, making big money from being influencers or going on Netflix shows, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's starting to make sense. I feel like I'm kind of seeing this guy's theory unfold. So do you think, like, once again, probably not in our lifetime, but to set your focus on entertainment, do you think that's a good path nowadays in 2024?
Nowadays, no, that's a good question. I think it's not so much the viability of the path. I think it's really more about whether you really want to do it or not. Because, like you said, in our lifetime, I think the entertainment industry is still going to be, a very competitive industry, and a lot of people are going to want to do it, and a lot of people are not going to make it. So I think if you really want to do it, then you got to do it.
Yeah.
But, don't do it because, you think it's going to be a viable career path.
And okay, so then I'll once again, I'll ask you again, I'll push back a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think that people are naturally inclined to, like, creativity? This is something that one of my friends was talking about.
Yeah.
So he's like, you're saying if you want to do it.
Yeah.
I'm asking, do you think that everyone kind of has that inside of them?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think everybody has the urge to create, because and it's not just film or music or anything like that, artistic. It can also be writing a paper, writing a book, doing research. It's all that kind of creative stuff. It feels really good to create something. And I think everybody wants to do something with their lives. the most substantial thing you can do with your life is to create something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you would be good. You're born in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Okay. So then like, explain to me, are your parents are they immigrants?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So explain how, like, where are they from?
Taiwan.
Taiwan.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So the Taiwanese culture, how does that influence you compared to the Canadian culture? Like, what do you kind of link more to?
Well, I would say the Taiwanese culture. Well, like any Asian culture, I suppose you can think of it as it's all about working hard and that kind of stuff. And I think that's definitely rubbed off on me a little bit. But other than that, because my parents, they've all spent a huge chunk of their lives in the States. So I wouldn't say they're that connected to their, I guess, native culture. Especially my mom, she lived in Michigan for a really long time. I mean, my parents met in a Ford factories.
Yeah.
So I would say they're pretty connected to the culture here, other than the kind of the Asian idea of you got to work hard and you got to be dedicated. And, other than that, that doesn't really rub off on me.
That's
other
good.
than those two
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Absolutely. Those are huge traits. I don't want to say I love, but I do talk a lot about like kind of the Chinese work ethic in the sense, like it's not Taiwanese, but I'm saying Chinese because U of T has a lot of Chinese students.
Yeah.
And just how like kind of cool to see it firsthand from a lot of these international students of like, this is what that culture is talking about. This is the work ethic that they're talking about. And obviously it comes with like pros and cons. But yeah, anyways, political science. This is just me finding out that you're Taiwanese. Yesterday, my friend Krishna was telling me about he was looking into buying stocks of like this microchip company.
Yeah.
And 2024 is like, there's big talks nowadays in the political sphere of what is the fate of the Taiwan-China situation.
Yeah.
What do you think? Like, I don't know if you look too much into it, but given you're studying political science, like, what do you think is coming?
I think, people look at the news and they think that the situation is very tense. And I think in some aspect it is very tense. But I do think a lot of it is just talk, because China being a dictatorship, they have the need to act tough. But I don't think they really want a war, because nobody wants a war. It's gonna ruin it's gonna ruin their economy. The quality of life is gonna get as low as it can get, and I don't think they really want a war. I hope a war doesn't happen. I just think everybody needs to relax.
Cool the brakes on it.
Yeah. Just take it easy.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need people to kind of like come on. Well, this obviously is not a huge platform, but like bigger platforms and just kind of like release the tension.
Yeah.
To be like, listen, everyone's getting all up in arms because it's like.
Yeah, I mean, look at the situation in Ukraine, and the situation in Israel. Yeah. Nobody wants a war. It's always bad. Nobody ever wins. So I think people got to remember that, and like what you said about history earlier. Yeah. People got to remember what happened in the past. It's not a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. What is like? I don't know too much about the situation. I don't know if you know too much about the situation. What's the motivation between like China threatening Taiwan? Is it like a Russia-Ukraine situation? Did Taiwan used to be a part of China?
Taiwan hasn't been part of China since like the late 1800s.
Okay.
It used to be like part of Imperial China when it was still ruled by an emperor.
Yeah.
But then they lost a war to the Japanese, and Taiwan was kind of given to the Japanese as a colony. And it stayed that way for about 50 years until they lost the war. But by then, the old government in China was no more, and now there was this like nationalist government. But then they lost the war in China to the communists. And then since now, there's kind of nobody in Taiwan because the Japanese lost and they left. So the nationalist government kind of moved there and leaving China to the communists. So I guess in the minds of the communists, since now Taiwan is also ruled by a Chinese government, they kind of have a claim to it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
People, like, I understand how people aren't too concerned with politics. And sometimes, like, the nitty-gritty details are kind of like, whatever, they're boring, they're useless. But when it's something as big scale as this, as Taiwan. Like, if anyone doesn't know, they're the number one country in the world for these microchips that kind of create every single piece of technology that we use, right?
Yeah.
So, like, that's what was happening in COVID, is that my dad works for a Honda plant, like, that makes car parts. Right? And he was telling me, he's like, yeah, like, we're kind of on a shutdown right now. We're kind of like waiting for all these chips because we can't like continue. All the cars nowadays, they're not just like mechanical. They have this touchpad in the driver's panel, and this is like kind of a necessity for our modern life.
Yeah.
So I just think it's interesting.
It would be a tough situation if something happens, you know, as you said, because the microchips are so important.
Yeah.
So it would be bad.
It would be really bad.
Yeah.
And Taiwan, once again, as I understand it, is going to call on the U.S. and other allies to try to defend, because the U.S. needs Taiwan to be safe, because their economy will also get destroyed if Taiwan's factories, the chip factories, either like get taken by China or they just get destroyed in the first place.
Yeah, I feel like if something does happen, the conflict would definitely expand, you know, because it's not just about China and Taiwan. I mean, for China, you know, maybe Russia will get involved, maybe North Korea, I don't know. But, you know, on Taiwan's side, you know, maybe Japan's going to get involved, South Korea, and of course the U.S. I don't know if they'll actually get involved, but they definitely have an interest in the area. Yeah. It will be bad for them if something happens.
100%.
Yeah.
What do you think about, like, a lot of this, they call it fear-mongering, but, like, when we think about stuff like nuclear war and, like, the world's going to end, there's Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, all this stuff is going off in different places. Do you think that human beings could actually extinct themselves?
I think it's
This is less political. This is more like philosophical question for you.
Yeah. It's a good question. I think it's very possible. It's very possible that we can do that. I think our technology has gotten to a point where it's kind of beyond human control, you know. I feel like we reached a good balance sometime in, like, you know, I don't know, the 50s or we had nuclear weapons by then. I would say, you know, sometimes before the invention of nuclear weapons and all the technology, it wasn't great, but we could get around. Yeah. And I feel like that was good, but, you know, human beings have needs to fulfill, and they, you know, keep advancing the technology to a point I don't feel like it's really necessary. You know, I can get around without a computer.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. I worry about, like, obviously the weapons are way beyond, like, what we could fathom, and if someone pulls the trigger first, then I don't know what will fall out from there. But it's that idea of, like, do you, like, these leaders of the world, are any of them crazy enough to actually pull the trigger first? Because I don't know, like, I feel like on a grand level, I don't know. There's psychopaths out there, but that's the question. Is, like, do you think a psychopath is really ruling a country? I feel like leaders are sensible enough to not end the entire planet. That's true. That's an optimistic view, but I don't know.
That's true, but you know, you also got to look at countries that are non-democracies where the leader kind of gets to do whatever he wants, and nobody's really there to stop him. You know, I feel like, you know, Putin could end the world if he wants. North Korea could do it. China could probably do it. Yeah. You know, because there's no, like, fail-safe there, you know. It's not like people can vote them out because they can't. Right. Yeah.
It's interesting. Something that you brought up, actually, about, you know, you can get around without a computer. Yeah. Something that you, once again, I feel like you kind of embody this, like, old head on new shoulders type of persona. I respect that. I love that. I wish more people were like that, about just, like, going back to old times. There's a bit of, like, what's the word? A feeling like it's like we feel like we're missing something, even though we were born in the 2000s.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way. You know, sometimes I look at, I don't know, old movies, old documentaries, and I'm just like, you know, people had it pretty good back then. Yeah. They probably didn't, but in hindsight, in the rose-tinted glasses of nostalgia, it looks pretty good.
That's what it is. It's the nostalgic feeling of a time that, like, never was.
But it was probably pretty rough. You know,
there was definitely challenges that we're not seeing, right?
Yeah. I mean, they don't show that in the movies, you know.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Something that I've been thinking about recently, and this AI thing is driving me insane. But I have found a bit of peace, a bit of solace in living like we're in the past. So, like right now, me and you were talking about, yeah, man, the 50s was an awesome time. I like if I could have grown up back then, that would be awesome. I always talk about with my mom, I was like, I wish I could be Peppa's friend, like my grandpa's friend, right?
Yeah.
Just like grow up with him. It seems like such a great time. The world nowadays is getting just too much. But no, obviously, like you can't change the era you're born in. And I've messed around with my brain, and I've taken a more useful view of the world. That is, live like you're in the past. Because in 50 years from now, if you think it's going to be getting any better, if you think we're getting any closer to the 50s, maybe the 2050s, but not the 1950s, right?
Yeah.
And there are definitely beautiful things about the state of the world in 2024 that we'll probably lose in a few decades' time.
That's true. I agree with you. I don't know. When I look at the world today, I do feel like it's too much. There's too much information. There's too much of everything, and it kind of gets overwhelming sometimes. But at the same time, I kind of realize this myself when I'm making movies and writing movies. You know, I feel like I always try to set it in the past. I don't like show it on the title card saying, "Oh, this is set in the 1970s."
Yeah.
But I kind of imply it's set in the past because I have this difficulty in romanticizing the present time. There's nothing romantic about the time we live in. But then again, that's just my perspective. You know, like you said, somebody living 30 years in the future will probably think the time we're living in is very romantic, even though we just can't see it right now. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's why that's my point about trying to like see what 2050 will look like.
Yeah.
When I try to see what 2050 will look like, that gives me the ability to romanticize 2024.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think when I thought about it was with hockey. I was watching a hockey game.
Yeah.
And there was this like thought, like, once again, I'm in this AI conversation sometimes with people, and there's an idea that maybe what if one day that like sports leagues become just like roboticized and automated, where now the league or the commissioner can kind of write the script. We get some robot AI.
So it would be like wrestling.
Yeah. Basically, right? So like, you know, no one has to get injured, and we can kind of, because it's definitely more profitable to write your own script than for it to be completely random.
That's true. You can probably make it a lot more entertaining if you write a script for it.
Absolutely.
I don't think people will like that, though.
I would not like that.
No,
I'm just thinking, like, is that like where we're going?
I hope not.
I hope not.
I don't think we're going there because I think even though technology can be nice sometimes, I think people realize, you know, how valuable and just how great humans are. You know.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, another thing that is about that is the theaters, tying back into your movie making.
Yeah.
The theaters is a business and an industry in decline, which is sad to see.
It's very sad. I like theater.
What do you think about streaming?
About streaming? Oh, I'll tell you what I think about streaming. I really don't like it.
Yep.
Because I feel like it ruins the whole idea of going to the movies. You know, it's Friday night, let's go to the movies, you know, with your friends, with your day, whatever. But streaming, it's just you're turning everything into TV.
Yeah.
And, you know, back in the days, all the actors, nobody wanted to do TV. For them, TV was like a stepping stone to get to doing movies. You know, because that's the real deal. No, nothing is the real deal. Everything's just like TV. Yeah. So I really don't like it. I prefer to, you know, just keep movies in the theaters. And if you want to see a movie, go to the theaters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I don't have Disney Plus. I don't have Netflix.
Yeah.
My parents used to have Netflix, but then they upped the price to something
Oh,
stupid.
they did, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was some sort of weird, like, new subscription version. I don't know.
Yeah.
But got rid of that. Like, we just
don't need it.
Just don't need it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, no, I love going to the theaters. It's great.
Yeah, and also it's a very special experience. I think everybody should have once in their lives, you know, and just sitting on your couch watching TV, it's different. You know, in the theaters, it's dark. You got the popcorn, you got the soda.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a massive screen.
Yeah.
You don't get that at home.
No, it's immersive.
It's immersive. It's an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first date ever was at the movies.
Oh, I don't know if that's a good idea.
I don't think that's a good idea either. I thought you were gonna defend it.
I'm not gonna
I was gonna come say, nah, movies are not a good first date. But you agree?
Listen, I love going to the movies, but it is definitely not a good first date idea, you know, because you're just sitting there. You don't get to talk to the other person, and also it gets kind of awkward because you don't really know this person very well.
Yep.
She's just sitting next to you.
Yeah.
It's just silent. It's just the sound of the movies.
I agree.
It's just weird.
I agree. No, I once again, I was expecting this to be like a back and forth where you're gonna be like, listen, no, first date for a movie is great. But no, I guess we're on the same page. I agree.
Yeah, for your first day, I don't know, go for a walk or something. Go for a picnic.
Yeah.
You know, something that you can have a conversation, you know.
Coffee.
Coffee's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's cool. What else? So yeah, let me think. What was your first date?
My first date? Oh, man. What did I do for my first date? Damn.
Took her to the movies.
No, not the movies, but it was going to the ROM.
Oh, okay.
You know, the museum right here, because it's kind of like going to the park or anything. The point is to walk and talk.
Yeah.
You know, anywhere you can walk and talk, I would say is a good first date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No Netflix and chill. No streaming.
No. Oh my God. No. Get that out of here.
No streaming allowed in the relationship.
No.
That's funny.
It is convenient though. I'll tell you that. But it's not the same. Let's go into the movies. Yeah.
So the ROM. I've been to the ROM. We're right beside it. That's the thing. I'm surprised I haven't been in so long.
It's also free for students.
Really?
On certain days.
On Tuesdays. Not Tuesdays.
Maybe Tuesday or I thought Thursday.
Maybe Thursday.
I don't know. It's free on one day during the week.
One day of the week for students.
You should definitely go.
That's cool. I'll have to go back.
Yeah, they got cool stuff.
Something that upset me that I learned the other day was that apparently all the dinosaurs in there are bullshit. In that, like, they'll have some of the real bones and then fill it in with
I see what you're
plastic.
talking about. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, they have to do that.
I didn't know that. I just learned this like a month ago. It broke my heart. Not that I'm a big museum frequenter or anything.
If they don't do that, the whole collection is going to be like in a box.
Yeah,
because they only got bits and pieces, you know. They got to fill in
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even be able to piece it together like...
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like movie magic.
Yeah.
You got to make it pretty.
I hear you. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
What's the hardest part about the movie making process?
I would say the hardest part about the movie making process is the same as any other creative endeavor, which is to convince yourself that what you're doing doesn't suck that hard.
Okay.
Because I feel like when you're making something that's coming out of your heart, you know, you're extra hard on it, and you're kind of biased, you know. You gotta get somebody else to come and look at it and tell you if it's good or not.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when I'm writing, I get other people to look at it and see, you know, does this sound stupid? Or the same thing with music. I tell my bandmates, you know, does this sound stupid? You know, what do you think it sounds? Because you can't really have a unbiased view of what you're doing yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's tough. Like, I've been trying to do something with the podcast where we do like feedback Fridays.
Yeah.
Because I need to get second opinions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't. If you stay stuck in like your own bubble, then it's kind of blinding in some sense.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about, and I'm sure you feel the same thing yourself. You know, when working on your podcast, I'm sure you once in a while you think, man, what if this sucks?
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, it doesn't suck. It's pretty good.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll watch your movies. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's true because like you get a bit of, I don't know if it's imposter syndrome sometimes, where it's like, you know, I've been putting so much time into this, you know, I think people like it, but what if they think it's shit?
Yeah.
It's a weird kind of tango you do with this idea.
And also when you're just getting started on creating something, you have to model yourself after someone, which kind of worsens the imposter syndrome, I guess, because you're gonna be thinking, am I too similar to this guy or something like that? You just gotta convince yourself that, you know, stick with it and just get it out, you know.
Absolutely.
Get it out.
Yeah. There's an interesting, I guess, trade-off between like inspiration and then authenticity. Yeah. Where it's like, you can find this with anything. Movies in your case, maybe music, maybe the podcast, maybe even your personality, right? Where you have role models and you have like kind of heroes in your life and people that you look up to. But then there's also like who you are. Who are you born as? Like, what is your soul? What does it contain? So there's like, like how do you balance the two? I'll ask you that real quick. We're going to take a quick pause for the cameras to cool down.
Sounds good.
Jump back into it.
Quick
Quick pause. If it overheats again, I'll let you know. We'll take another quick break.
All right,
Hopefully
sounds
not,
good.
though. Hopefully not. I was talking to you about
Yep.
the balance between kind of taking influence from people that you look up to and kind of having that authenticity. We were just talking off camera about reinventing yourself.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
what do you think about that, like, balance? Like, do you have role models in your life, or whether it's in movie making, that you're like, I don't want to be too much like them, but, you know, I look up to these people?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like when you're starting out, you have to have a role model because you got to model yourself after someone. But eventually, you have to do something different if you want to be, something really special.
Yeah.
Because if you just keep emulating someone, you're just gonna you can still be good, but you might just end up another brick in the wall, if you know what I mean.
You'll never be as good as the real deal, which is whoever you're trying to model.
That's true because they also modeled themselves, but they also, they did something different with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are themselves, yeah. You won't be able to get closer to the real deal than the real deal himself.
No, so you got to be your own real deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's deep.
Yeah, there you go. Lessons on VoV.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's interesting. We'll talk about, I want to circle back. I asked you about that first date thing.
Yeah.
I talk a lot about relationships on here.
Yeah.
Guys don't really do that much, I feel, but, it's a podcast. It's interesting.
Oh, you got to
ask
talk
you
about it.
Absolutely.
You got to talk about it, yeah.
And we're talking about the eras, the romantic eras
Uh-huh.
that have been, in recent history.
Yeah.
And you feel like there's nothing really romantic about today. How do you feel about, like, relationship dynamics in 2024? Because, like, I also like to think back in the 50s and think,
Yeah.
marriage back then seemed so much better, and, couples
That's
seemed so
true.
much happier.
That's true, but you also got to take into consideration how we got those ideas of how relationships were back then, I'm sure they made it pretty.
Right.
Yeah, but I know what you're talking about. I feel like the relationship dynamic today isn't really for me. It isn't really for me, but some people make it work, and I'm really happy for them. But I think for me, growing up watching all those old movies, I think for me it's a little harder adjusting to how it is now.
How would you characterize the relationship dynamics of today? Like, when you say that, what do you mean?
Back then, you kind of know what to do. There's like a set of rules that you follow, and there's like there's a SOP, a standard operating procedure, where you just kind of do these things, don't do those things, and you'll be good. But today, I feel like people don't like the set of rules that people have back then anymore. And what people used to do back then, might not be okay today. So it's kind of a gray area, a land of unknown, where you have to explore and figure out what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like in general, if you just be a nice guy and don't be a bad guy, you'll be okay.
I think that there's a balance between, like, maybe not a balance. There's like a confusion nowadays with, like, how is a man supposed to act in a relationship? How is a woman supposed to act in a relationship? Do you think that, like, what you were saying back then, there's a standard operating procedure?
Yeah.
How people kind of fit into their roles, whether it was naturally or whether it was from whatever. I mean, I would say a lot of it was from religion.
Oh, yeah.
Back then, the religious presence was a lot bigger than it is today.
Yeah.
Do you think that idea of, like, playing your role in a relationship is important?
Yeah, I definitely think it's important. And I think that goes beyond relationship, I think in life, doesn't matter what your job is, what your gender is, or what you believe in. Everybody has a role to play, and if you don't play your role well, then, it's going to be chaos.
Yeah.
Everybody do what you got to do,
Absolutely.
Do what you need to do, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And that's the main thing of, like, I feel like with relationships nowadays, we're trying to get men and women on, like, the same playing field to a point where the roles kind of evaporate. So I like to think a lot about, like, the only reason that we need each other, that I feel like men need women, women need men, is because we have these different jobs. It's because we do different things. It's like, if we all are on the same playing field, why would we even need each other?
I understand. Well, I think it's not a bad thing to be on equal playing field. I think everybody could be on the equal playing field. I think that's great, kumbaya. But at the same time, I do believe in the idea that everybody's equal but different.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
When I say equal playing field, that's what I mean.
Yeah, everybody's equal in value, but, people have different needs and people perform different functions. And if you're just trying to make everybody the same and do the same thing, have the same needs, it's communism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. And in this context, I think that, like, just from talking to girls about it, like, if we're having an argument, the feeling I get from them is that they somehow put the masculine roles as superior to the feminine roles. That's what I get. Is that, like, the feeling I get is that women are devaluing, or they feel like feminine roles have been devalued. So it's like they're saying that the masculine roles are way better, and it's sexist that only the men can do these things and the women are expected to do these things. And the way it was framed in my mind, which actually kind of makes sense, is that in the context of whether it was the 30s or the 20s or whatever back then, the man's kind of realm was seen as like the world. The man has to go out into the world, even go further back, like the 1600s when dudes were fighting like bisons and hunting and shit.
Yeah.
The man's realm was seen as like the outside world. You got to go hunt, you got to get the food, you got to bring it home. The women's realm was seen as the home, taking care of the home, or the field, like picking the berries and taking care of the children. And back then, those had to be the roles for survival if you wanted to live. Right? But nowadays, since we've built such a safe society where like the women's place is no longer in the home, like for survival's sake, like we can have everyone out there in the world. But evolutionarily has the ideas changed? Like how do you fit the evolutionary kind of like instincts in the modern world? Because we like obviously we're not expecting women to just stay inside.
No.
So how do you like make the roles of a man and a woman in a relationship without like in such a safe world?
Well, I think the problem with gender roles back then is that it's very set in stone. But I feel like there's nothing wrong with gender roles. It's just we need to do it in a way that's not so set in stones, If people want to follow gender roles, go ahead, and I think it's great. And I want to follow gender roles. But if people don't want to follow gender roles, that's totally fine too. Don't follow gender roles, But I don't think there's anything wrong with gender roles. And, we can keep them around. Just don't enforce it on people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. So when we're talking about roles in a relationship, you're not necessarily saying man's roles are this, women's roles are this.
No.
So then what roles do you think are important? Like, is it just different for every couple?
I think it is different for every couple, but there is a convention that I like to follow, where the guy, kind of has to be more, I don't know what's the word for it, but has to be more masculine, But at the same time, I also realized that whatever works, I didn't realize this in Ottawa, but after I came to, the big city, I realized, whatever works. But for me, I still want to follow the kind of gender roles and stuff. Yeah,
that's fair. I think that, it's interesting to kind of think about like instincts, and obviously like I believe in evolution. I'm one of these people who believe in God and in evolution, which is kind of a weird thing, because those like kind of, in a lot of people's minds, they kind of...
No, I feel like I'm in the same camp.
Yeah. So, but anyways, my point of this was I was wondering, like, how do you balance like moral virtue and like animal instinct? Because I believe in these two things. I believe that, God has instructed us to be a certain way, but then also we're descended from monkeys. So, like, I don't believe in just trusting your instinct all the time in the case of, like, we're not animals.
Definitely
you can't just follow an animal instinct. You have to, there's also a morality side to it. Where do you find that balance? Because I think that sometimes, like, there's good sides to both.
That's true, but I feel like me personally, I'm very heavy on the morality side. I feel like, your morals should always, trump your animal instinct. Because, that's the thing separating us from animals. And, also from me growing up, because my mom is religious, I think she has taught me a lot. And one of the most important things that she's taught me, I think, is that you always got to do the right thing. even though it's hard. And, you know, sometimes perhaps your animal instinct makes doing the right thing hard, but you still got to do the right thing. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a structure in the brain that I've learned about recently.
Yeah.
Called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. It's a part of the brain, and once again, not a life science student. Didn't even learn this from a book. I learned this in the most modern, like, lazy way possible from a podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
And the idea of this is that it grows or shrinks in size based on how often you do things you don't want to do.
Yeah.
So in this context, we're talking about morality.
Yeah.
This structure has also been linked to like the will to, obviously the will to act, like willpower in and of itself.
Yeah.
Whether it's studying for school, going to the gym,
Yeah.
waking up on time, not sleeping in. A lot of that's linked to the size of this part of the brain. But it is also linked to the will to live, even wanting to live.
Yeah.
So when it comes to morality, that's a good point. People that I guess that just follow their animal instinct and just, you know, kind of let their desires and let their, I guess, deepest, darkest cravings guide them.
Yeah, that's not good.
It's not good.
That's not good.
And it's not growing this thing, this part of the brain that is
Yeah.
your will to live. If you just always follow without any sort of like moral righteousness,
Yeah.
that leads to a dead end.
Oh, always.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got to do the
Absolutely.
right thing.
So
Yeah.
it's it's tough.
It's very tough.
What are your upcoming goals? You got about a year and a half of university left. When it comes to academics, when it comes to film,
When it comes to film,
are we getting a second EP?
Oh yeah, we're working on an album that's gonna come soon. That's
Yeah.
that's a LP, I think, with 8 songs. So it's
Sweet.
a little chunkier.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Perfect.
so that's coming soon. And for movies, well, I hope to make a few more before I finish university. I feel like it's going to be harder to make films once you're out of university, you know. And I feel like it will be nice to get some exposure for it, and you know, maybe go to a few film festival. That would be nice. But you know, in general, other than that, I would say get a job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fair.
do well in life.
Yeah.
Have a family.
Yeah.
Settle down.
Nice.
Make God proud.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
You're getting some old time, and this is the thing, is that you're not just talking shit. You actually you embody that old time spirit. I think we need more of. Where would you, I guess, I don't know if you're big on advice, giving people advice. Obviously, like, we don't want to tell people exactly what to do, but
No.
advice is always a good thing.
Yeah.
People that feel the same way you do, let's say, where it's like the new world is so stressful.
Yeah.
What would you tell them in terms of kind of like trying to reconnect and do what they can to kind of be back in that position that our grandparents, great-grandparents, ancestors were in?
Well, I feel like when I find myself in a situation like that, where I'm, you know, disheartened or beaten down by society, I feel like the important thing is to remember that you're not the only one going through it. You know, it's not like God has it out for you. I mean, there are lots of people out there suffering. I mean, your grandparents in their time also suffered.
Yeah.
Everybody had a hard time.
Life is suffering. Yeah.
And it's not just you. But for me, you know, it's important to remember that you're here for a reason. You know, God put you here for a reason, and you got a goal that you have to fulfill. And before you do that, you just can't, you know, let yourself go. You got to keep at it.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I've only recently, I say recently, like the past year or so, I've started thinking about this idea of God. It's such a powerful idea, such a powerful force.
Yeah.
And I think that people could use that in their lives. And it doesn't even need to be framed, because when people say God, people think about religion.
Yeah.
And those aren't actually directly connected.
Yeah, like I was thinking about that recently too. Like when you ask me the question, do you actually wholeheartedly believe in God, the existence of God? You know, I can't tell you that I 100% believe that there's a God, but I would like to believe there is. And, you know, I think that's the thing about religion, not necessarily religion, It's just the idea that there's something great out there, that there's an overarching plan that you're following. It's a very powerful idea.
It is.
Yeah.
And there's an argument to be made about when you think about truth. Sometimes there's a, you want to call it a school of thought that believes the most useful idea is, or the most useful and most beneficial idea is truth. So it doesn't apply in every context, but when we're talking about God, the huge thing that pushed me towards is that God is an idea that at the start I was what do they call them? Agnostic. That's what so agnostic is like, I believe that the idea of God can never be it can never be proven or disproven.
Yeah, you don't know.
Right. Like no, you don't know. No one will ever know.
Right.
It was my thought.
Yeah.
So from that starting point, as soon as someone told me the idea of, like, believe in what's useful over what could technically or technically not be true, I combine those ideas of utility and thinking that it will never be disproven. Once you can do that, that is what leads me to my belief in God. Because it can't be disproven. You can't come to me and try to use some physics and antimatter. This is how the universe started. Bullshit. No.
Yeah.
God is an idea that cannot be disproven.
Yeah.
And once again, can't be proven necessarily either. So then why would you not believe in a powerful force like that? Why would you, if it can benefit your life, if it can make you a happier person, a more optimistic person, hopeful, kinder to others.
And I feel like a lot of times when people approach religion, they think about, there's so many rules that you have to follow. They think about it as a very dominating thing that's going to dominate your life. But I feel like you don't really have to think about it that way. If you don't like what some things the Bible is saying, don't listen to it. Just take the parts that you like. And I think the key thing about religion is just being a good person and doing good things. If you can do that, you're set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the core of most religions is positive.
Yeah.
But I will ask you more. I want to push back on what you said about kind of picking and choosing. I feel like that has been a problem recently with people saying, I follow the Bible, but I follow it only on these pages. That technically isn't following the Bible.
I see what you're talking about. I've heard that a lot.
So that could be kind of, I think that actually could be harmful of thinking like, because you're creating your own religion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which isn't kind of what it's meant to be.
I understand, but I feel like it depends on how you view the Bible. Do you take it literally, or do you take it as a metaphor for life?
Interesting.
And I think for me, I take it as a metaphor for life.
Yeah.
If you're going to tell me that some guy split the ocean in two,
I'm
going to be like, okay.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. So maybe it's about, it's true. It is more of a metaphor for life, and the stories are, I think, lessons rather than physical accounts of what took place.
Yeah.
And this is coming from someone who has not read the Bible, so I'm not trying to come off as arrogant. I'm sure I am coming off as arrogant. I have a Bible that
me too.
I want to read.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't sit down in one sitting and go through page by page, but I'm dedicated to learning more about it. So we'll see where that takes me. Do you have any final thoughts for the people at home that you'd like to share?
At home that I would like to share? Well,
they might not be at home. They might be in class or something.
In class? Well, I would say take it easy and rock on.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Scott Lyman.
Bye, guys.
Don't know exactly what episode this is, but we'll get it out, and we'll hopefully you enjoyed, liked the interview. It was great. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Podcasts every Sunday. VoV, we're here promoting diversity of thought. It's the new slogan, by the way. I tell guests this all the time.
It's a good slogan.
Thank you.
You should make it rhyme, though.
Make it rhyme?
Yeah, make it rhyme.
How would you make it rhyme? You're the musician. Help me out.
Oh God, but I'll tell you what. A good slogan has to rhyme.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll work on it. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. Thank you for watching. Instagram @VoicesOfVic. Like the interview. See you next Sunday. Peace out.